Hello my little slimes, a video about my build. Actually not really, we'll talk more about the fact that you can use any weapon you want with any class you want. You just need the stats to wield the weapon. For example, a quarterstaff you just need a lot of dexterity and a bit of intelligence. For a crossbow you need a mix of strength and dexterity. And we'll talk about all of that in this video with, as example, my build. But basically you have the bell, which is this weapon. The bell has a big advantage being that for every single elemental element, so when it means elemental element, it means freeze, chill, shock, electrocute, and ignite, it will do more damage. For example, on the shockwave, you do 30% more damage per elemental element you have. So with my build, I can go up to 150, right? Because I apply every single thing. How do you ask, though? Well, that's a good question. Thank you, Exploud. Yeah, thank you, Exploud. So for lightning, it's pretty simple. My clearing tool is Tempest Flurry, and Tempest Flurry has the advantage of putting shock ground on the ground. I use Incinerate to ignite my bell, and I use Frozen Locust to apply both chill and the freeze, because when you break this, it does a big explosion that has a huge freeze buildup, and the Tempest Bell has the advantage to not have a huge freeze threshold, so you just freeze it instantly, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, I'm also a Shayula monk, but it's not really gonna be like anything interesting. I'm not a huge fan of the Ascendancy now, but whatever. Anyway, as you can see, I also have Mantra of Destruction. Mantra of Destruction is pretty good because it just gives you extra chaos damage. So that's why I'm saying that I'm a 4-element build in my TikToks, because, well, I kind of am. So, exploits for the future, actually. I kind of forgot to tell you that the big advantage of Mantra of Destruction with the bell is that supposedly the Mantra of Destruction only works on your next attack. But for the bell, it's kind of insane because it works on the placement of the bell and every single shockwave afterwards. It's kind of dumb. Well, you can continue with the video exploit of the past, I guess. Yeah, you're done? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Sorry. Chaos, it just being an extra bit of damage, which is pretty cool. And also works really well with my Ascendancy because I have the Purple Flames of Shayula. It's kind of weird because it doesn't really work properly in the sense that Mantra of Destruction flames are 6 seconds and the flames from Walking Dream are 5 seconds, if I remember correctly, at best. Well, base 5. So what's weird is that when you get flames from Mantra of Destruction, they are not before the one from Walking Dream, and thus you lose stack while still getting stacked with picking up a flame, right? But whatever. Anyway, so how you are supposed to play this build is you need to build combos, right, with Tempest Flurry. With Tempest Flurry, what I do is that I get a few attacks with, where is it? Tempest Flurry, there you go. So I use Conduction to have a bit chance of Chalk, because it's still useful. Culling Strike to instantly kill a monster if I can with it. And also I have Practice Combo. Practice Combo lets me build an extra additional hit of combo for a 30% chance, which is pretty nice. And also, this attack builds combo naturally because it's a quarterstaff attack. So not all quarterstaff attack build combos. For example, Gathering Storm doesn't, as I'll show you. Right? So I didn't get any combo on the bell or the Mantra of Destruction. But with this attack, I get stacks, right? So when I'm clearing monsters, I'm not using this attack. I'm just using Gathering Storm. But when we have big monsters, I do Gathering Storm into Bell, into the ice, into I burn it, and then I fire it. You're like, oh wait, why was it? What happened? You use a crossbow now. Well, that's why I want to make this video, is to show people that you don't need to be a mercenary to use a crossbow. You don't need to be a monk to use a quarterstaff. You don't need to be a raider or the archer, I don't remember the name of the class, to use a bow. You can use any weapon you want as soon as you have the stats. So, for example, on my monk, I need a bit of intelligence and dexterity, right? A lot of dexterity and a bit of intelligence, rather. So, I have an 86 dexterity and 35 intelligence. If I had a higher level weapon, I could have, you know, more, but I would need more, but for this weapon it's fine. And in the case of the crossbow, as you can see, I have exactly what I need, right? So my crossbow is 95 strength and 95 dexterity. So I have 95 strength, and as a monk, I can actually use the crossbow, as you can see. And what's weird about this build is that the bell, being a quarterstaff attack, doesn't need to be hit by a quarterstaff attack. It can be hit by any attack. And if you are playing with people, it can be hit by your friends as well. So when I build a bell, I just do this, and then I fire it. If I can, because the game is aiming at... That's the problem of my build. And that's why I don't want to suggest this build to people. Because first, the crossbow aim pretty much where it wants. Oh, that's actually nice. There you go. So for example, a yellow, boom, boom, boom. There. one fire of the crossbow. And so this build works really well on bosses, because you just one-tap them most of the time. It needs a bit of setup, and that's why I like this build, because I like the setup. I find it funny, right? Because you're like, hey, I put the bell, I backflip, I burn it, I dash to it, and then I fire it. You know, it's funny. It's funny. It's not like... For Path of Exile, it's not really a good idea to have a lot of setup, because then you just die to the bosses, or just die to the monsters. And that's why I don't want to suggest this build, because the problem is that I don't have a good attack to go with it to do just clearing, right? I have Gathering Storm, which is nice, because I don't have a lot of attack speed, and it works really well with just a lot of damage. But the problem is, if I'm getting stunned when I'm charging up, I lose my attack, and then I might die afterwards. Even with the Stone Charm that lets you not being stunned for a few seconds. But yeah, it's kind of a problem, and I've died to a lot of maps, unfortunately, due to that. The breach content is literally unplayable with Gathering Storm, which is a bit unfortunate. Well, with this build and Gathering Storm, to be specific. Maybe with another build, Gathering Storm would be better. So what I want to suggest to people, if you want to use the bell and make it go brrr with a crossbow, just play full lightning or full ice. That's just gonna work plenty. If you play full ice, you get the freeze build-up really fast, so you instantly freeze the boss and you kill it. And if you play full lightning, you just put electrocute on something, like the electrocute support, and then you are good to go. Because you can stun with electrocute, you can even get stunned with the bell, so, you know. I just feel like it's better that way. So if you're still curious about making the build, and maybe you can find some way to make it work without having the problem of, like, you know, not being able to clear the maps properly, but being able to destroy bosses. That's how my tree was going. Also, this build can really work well with crits, but I was not able to go crits because of the Shayula, because of the Shayula Ascendancy I went for. If you go for, how is it called again? If you go for the Invoker with the crits that lets you use the projectiles that goes like the multi-elemental thing, I think it would be way better. I kind of want to try again, but I didn't want to build the same build with just a different ascendancy. And the fact that you can reset your ascendancy is kind of annoying right now. I hope they're going to fix that, but whatever. But anyway, so a note that's really cool with this build is this one, because you get 30% elemental damage, so it's global elemental, right? For every time you chill, every time you shock, and every time you ignite. So that means that's 90%, which is pretty cool for my build, right? I did upgrade the magnitude of my shock, so instead of having 20% damage, I have 45%. And if I was able to go further with the build, which I would love to, but I can't because, as I explained, it's kind of hard to clear maps with it. I would probably be around like 70 to 80% magnitude of shock, which would nearly double my damage, right? Which would be cool, but hey. And also, I went full evasion. At first, I wanted to go energy shield evasion for defensive reasons, because Shayula works really well with the energy shield, because of this node specifically. You cannot recharge your energy shield, but mana leech effects is also recover your energy shield. So that means you can leech on your energy shield, which is pretty cool. And then what you want to look for is either attack damage or elemental or shock in this case. So here you have a lot of elemental. For every type of elemental element I have on the enemy, I do 15% more 50% increased damage. So in this case it would be 45%. Because for each type, it's not for each elemental element. So that means if I have a lightning element, a fire element, and ice element, I get 45% damage. If, for example, I already have shock on the enemy and I add electrocute, I'll still have 15%. I won't have 30. Also, the problem with this build, since it's multi-elemental, you don't really get to pick the penetration thing. So I will talk about it a bit later in the tree, right? So you also want to get those nodes over there, which are pretty cool. Again, affected by elemental element, duration of elements, well, most elements at least. Here you have chance and to shock in the build-up of freeze and electrocute, which is pretty nice. Chance to ignite, we don't really need it, but it's part of it, so that's fine, because incinerate guarantees the ignite. You don't have to like have a chance to ignite. And attack damage penetrates 50% elemental resistance, so that's one thing that's really good, especially in maps and against bosses, because they have a lot of resistances, so you kind of want to have that. I was going to remove all of those nodes once I got this node over there, which I just ignore elemental resistance if I freeze the boss, and since I tend to freeze the boss instantly, well, that would have been nice. But anyway. And then I would go for like also melees. The strike range is pretty nice with Gathering Storm, by the way. And I had to go for some stun recovery because I was having trouble with Gathering Storm, but even with the stun recovery I'm still dying to monsters stunning me, so yeah, it's not good enough. And then a lot of stats, because since this build is like multi-weapon, I need a lot of stats, so the 25 dexterity here was nice, and the X-ray vision here was pretty nice too. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the tree. The tree! The tree! The tree! So let's get back on track a bit, shall we? So I wanted to talk about the fact that you can switch between weapons pretty easily, but in the first game, so in Path of Exile 1, you would switch with X, right? But here we don't want to do that. Actually, the game lets you switch automatically to a weapon required for an attack, even a spell actually. For example, if I start attacking, then I switch to the quarterstaff. If I start using like the crossbow attack, I switch to the crossbow attack. If I use Incinerate, I can use it with my crossbow, right? But if it did happen before, I would not have enough intelligence to use Incinerate with my crossbow, but I would with my staff, because on my staff I have 21 intelligence. The game is automatically gonna switch to your weapon, your correct weapon, which is really cool. So for example, if I want to start to build the bell, right, I attack, put the bell on the ground, then I attack directly with the crossbow, and it switches directly to the crossbow, right? And here I switch back to my quarterstaff with Gathering Storm, nice little bug, and there. You can just switch to the correct weapon by using the attack. So if an attack requires a certain weapon, even for the stat requirement, the game is going to be smart enough to switch to it. So it's perfect. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I tend to make builds that are like really weird because I want to test things out, especially in Path of Exile 2. I want to test things to see how they work, right? So the next build I'm working on playing rather, is a full chaos debuff build with the totem to see how that handles it with a lot of poison and shit. It's going to be interesting. But anyway, if you want to catch me, you can catch me on Twitch rather pretty much every day right now. I'll go back on the schedule as soon as we do Final Fantasy content again. And yeah, my main content is Path of Exile 2 right now, Final Fantasy 14, and maybe a bit speedrunning here and there. So yeah, have a nice day and see you on Twitch.